Welcome back, everybody. In this project, you are going to create an auto parts dashboard. So let's get started. The Director of Sales has asked you to create a monthly dashboard for her to ensure auto parts sales are on track to meet monthly and annual targets for 4 US regions. The dashboard should include the following for a YTD or year-to-date time period: sales by region, total sales compared to planned dollars, sales by auto category, the number of employees not meeting their sales goals by 5% or more, the number of employees exceeding their sales goals by 5% or more, and the overall monthly sales trend. The data is generated from a database query. You'll receive updated data at the start of every month for the prior month's sales. Users will access the dashboard online, including mobile devices, as well as some users will receive a printed out version of the dashboard. If you open the Auto Parts Sales Dashboard Excel file, you will see the sample data that you are going to use to create the dashboard. This is the end result of the dashboard. Happy learning! Alright, let's start to create our dashboard. I already opened the Excel file that has the sample data that we are going to use, so let's dive in. The Excel workbook has one worksheet called Data. The worksheet consists of 7 columns: region, employee, category, components, end of month date, plan, and sales. In order to build this dashboard, you will need to design the dashboard worksheet using icons and formatting, accommodate up to 12 months of data, create 6 pivot tables, add 1 Sparkline, include 1 pie chart, insert 6 icon graphics, add 1 timeline, size to fit or be shrunken down on display to 1 standard size, 8.5 inches to 11-inch piece of paper landscape. Use color sparingly, as you don't know if the paper form will be printed in color or in black and white ink. Prepare the dashboard to receive new data and keep the existing formatting. The first thing to do is to create a new sheet called Dashboard. So click the plus icon and rename this sheet 1 to Auto Parts Sales Dashboard. Move the dashboard sheet to the first worksheet. Let's insert a title. Here, in cell A1, type Monthly Auto Parts Sales Dashboard. Highlight the cells from A1 to R1 and click the Merge and Center button. Adjust the row height by right-clicking on the first row and then row height. Insert the value 30 and press OK. You can fill the cell with a color and add an icon, a car for example. I always use the Excel icons from the Insert tab and the Icons button. Type car and select this. Change the color to white and move it somewhere here. Nice. Now I want to add a time that we sell auto parts, so click on cell A2 and type Data Form. Merge and center the cells A2 and B2. To calculate the minimum date of the data worksheet and column E, I will use the min function, so type equal min column E from data worksheet. To format the cells as a date from the Home tab, from the Numbers section, open the drop-down window and select More Number Formats. The category is date. I only want the month and the year. So I think this type is ideal. Click OK. Now click on the E1 cell. To calculate the maximum date, I will use the max function. Type equal max, column E from data worksheet. Format the cells. Pretty straightforward, right? Let's continue to design 6 areas, one for each pivot table. Click on the A4 cell and type regions. Click on D4 cell and type percentage of goal. Click on the G4 cell and type sales by category. Click on the J4 cell and type employees below 5% of goal. Click on M4 cell and type employees above 5% of goal. Click on P4 and type trend. Adjust the row height. Make some formatting. To make my dashboard more beautiful and impressive, I'll add some graphics, some icons from Insert tab, and illustrations. Of course, this step is optional, but I think it adds a solid touch to the dashboard. So, let's start by adding some icons. Now how cool is that? It's time to add our pivot tables. We'll begin by preparing our data for the dashboard. This will involve creating 6 pivot tables. The first pivot table is sales by region. Click the dataset and select columns A to G. From the ribbon, select Insert Tab, then Pivot Table. When you receive the Create Pivot Table prompt, select the existing worksheet radio button. Place your cursor inside the location box. With your cursor inside the location box, click the Dashboard tab, and then click A7. The location box should now have Auto Part Sales Dashboard A7 entered. Click the OK button. Keep in mind that by selecting columns instead of specific cells, we'll be preparing the dashboard to accept new data. When we receive new months' worth of sales, we can append our existing dataset and not have to make any additional changes. With your cursor in the A7 cell of the Dashboard tab, right-click and select Pivot Table Options. Enter Regions as a pivot table name. You can merge cells for row and for column items in order to center the items horizontally and vertically, or to unmerge cells to left justify items in the outer row and column fields at the top of the item group. Check the box Merge and Center Cells with Labels. Uncheck the box Auto Fit Column Widths to update to keep the current pivot table column width. Click the OK button. Now from the Pivot Table field pane, select the following fields. Drag Region and drop it into Rows area. Drag Sales and drop it into Values area. Let's format the pivot table. Select cell A7 and change the text from Row Labels to Regions. Select cell B7 and change the text from Sum of Total to Sales in dollar. Select cell A14 and change the text from Grand Total to Totals. Select cells B8 to B13 and change to a currency format of your choice. Select cell A7 and then from the Pivot Table Tool ribbon, select the tab design. From the Pivot Table Styles drop-down, select a format that you like. Also, add a border from the Home tab and Border button. To delete this blank row, click the drop-down arrow and uncheck the blank option. Now that we've built and formatted our first pivot table, it's easy to reuse it for subsequent measures. The second pivot table we are going to create is the percentage of the goal. Select cells A7 to B13. Right-click and select Copy or press Ctrl+C on your keyboard. Place your cursor in cell D7 and press Ctrl+V or Paste on your keyboard. With your cursor in cell D7, right-click and select Pivot Table Options. Enter % of goal for the pivot table name. Click the OK button. Inside the Pivot Table field pane, uncheck the Region box. Drag the Plan field to the Value section. Select cell E7 and change the text from Sum of Plan to Plan in dollar. Now change the values to a currency format of your choice. Great! The third pivot table we are going to create is sales by category. The steps to create it are the same as the previous pivot table. Select cells D7 to E8, right-click and select Copy, or press Ctrl+C on your keyboard. Place your cursor in cell G7 and press Ctrl+V or Paste on your keyboard. With your cursor in cell G7, right-click and select Pivot Table Options. Enter sales by category for the pivot table name. Click the OK button. Inside the pivot table fields pane, uncheck the plan box. Drag the category field to the rows section. Select cell G7 and change the text from region to category. To delete this blank row, click the drop-down arrow and uncheck the blank option. If it needs, change the values to a currency format of your choice and add a border. For our next two pivot tables, we will be using a custom calculated field. As demonstrated in the previous lessons, pivot tables have many built-in mathematical features. However, the type of analysis you perform may require more complex calculations than those included in the standard set of pivot table value field settings. This is when the ability to insert your own calculated fields is particularly helpful. So the next pivot table that we are going to create is employees below 5% of the goal. Let's get started. Select the cells G7 to H13. Right-click and select Copy or Ctrl+C on your keyboard. Place your cursor in the J7 cell and press Ctrl+V for paste. With your cursor in cell J7, right-click and select Pivot Table Options. Enter Employees below for the pivot table name. Click the OK button. Inside the Pivot Table Fields pane, uncheck the Category and Sales boxes. Now check the Employee box. Select cell J7. Change the name from Category to Employee. From the Pivot Table Tools ribbon, select the tab Design. Click the drop-down box for grand totals and select Off for rows and columns. Click the Pivot Table Analyze tab. There's a button called Fields, Items, and Sets. Click the drop-down arrow and select the calculated field. A new dialog box appears. In the name box, type percentage of goal. In the formula field, we want to create a formula that calculates the difference between the actual sales and the planned sales of auto parts as a percentage. So enter the following formula. Equal, parenthesis, sales minus plan, close parenthesis, divided by plan. Press OK. Notice that the percentage of goal new field has added to our pivot table results. Here it is. Sum of percentage of goal. Let's right-click and select Value Field Settings. In the field Custom Name, change the sum of percentage of goal to plus minus goal. Click the Number Format button. Select percentage and change the decimal places to 0. Click the OK button twice. Keep in mind that we want the employees below 5% of the goal. Select cell J7, click the drop-down arrow and select Value Filters. From the submenu, select less than or equal to. The following prompt will appear. Enter the number -0.05 in the field after the drop-down box is less than or equal to, and press OK. Look at that. These are the employees below that 5% of the goal. Select cell J7 and click Filter drop-down arrow and select More Sort Options. Click the radio button for ascending A to Z by. Click the drop-down box and select plus minus goal. Press OK and the pivot table is ready. For the next pivot table, employees above the percentage of goal, the steps are exactly the same. To save time, I'm going to copy the previous table from J7 to K14 and place my cursor in the cell M7 and paste it with the right click or Ctrl+V. Now I'm going to change some things, starting with the pivot table name. With your cursor in cell M7, right click and select Pivot Table Options. Enter Employees Above for the pivot table name. Click and the OK button. Select cell M7, click the Filter button drop-down arrow and select Value Filters from the submenu, select greater than or equal to. The following prompt will appear. Enter the number 0.05 in the field after the drop-down box is greater than or equal to, press OK. Select cell M7 and click the Filter button, and select More Sort Options. Click the radio button for descending Z to A by. Click the drop-down box and select plus minus goal. Click the OK button. To remove or change a calculated field, follow the steps below. 1. Click the Pivot Table Analyze tab. 2. Click the Fields, Items, and Sets drop-down box. 3. Select Calculated Field. 4. In the Name drop-down box, select the calculated field that you'd like to change or remove. 5. Click the appropriate button, either Modify or Delete. 6. Click the OK button. While calculated fields are helpful, they do have their limitations. The problem is related to grand total calculations. Most often when this occurs, when you try to attempt to multiply two fields in a dataset where some aggregation has already occurred. For example, when your data contains fields called units and price, you attempt to determine the extended price, for example, units multiplied by price, the individual rows will calculate correctly. However, the totals will compute as the sum of units multiplied by sum of price. Let's walk through an illustration. Let's say you're attempting to calculate each vehicle type's total sales. However, the vehicles were sold at different prices. You create a pivot table with a calculations field called sales total, which is the unit multiplied by the price. The individual rows are correct, however, the totals are not. Let's resume building our auto parts dashboard. For our last pivot table, we'll be working with a date field. We'll be grouping the end of the month date by month. In order to work with the date displayed as a month, we'll need to perform some non-intuitive steps. First of all, select the cells A7 to B13, right-click, and select Copy or press Ctrl+C on your keyboard. Place the cursor cell in P7 and press Ctrl+V to paste it. With your cursor in cell P7, right-click and select the Pivot Table option. Enter Trend for the pivot table name and click the OK button. Inside the Pivot Table Fields pane, uncheck the Region box and check the EOM Date box. Notice that this added an additional field named Months. Once the months field is added, uncheck EOM date. Drag the sales field inside the values section. Click on the sum of sales. Right-click and select Value Field Settings. From the Value Field Settings prompt, select the tab Show Values As. For the Show Values As drop-down list, select % difference from. As a base field, select the months field, and as a base item, select previous. For custom name, enter plus minus last MN. Change the number format to a % with 1 decimal place. Click the OK button. Nice. Let's change the name of the P7 cell from regions to month. From the Pivots Table tool ribbon, select the tab Design. Click the Grand Totals drop-down box and select Off for rows and columns. Lastly, format the values to currency. I want to add Sparklines inside this area, inside cell P5, so highlight it first. From the Insert tab and Sparkline section, select Win-Loss. In the dialog box for data range, select cells from R10 to R14. Keep in mind that if you want to prepare to eventually receive 12 months of data, you should select the cells from R10 to R20. As location range, click P5 cell. Click the OK button, and the Sparkline is ready. Select cells G8 to H12, and from the ribbon, select Pivot Table Analyze tab, and then the pivot chart icon. Select Pie category, and the first pie on the left. Click the OK button. Move the chart below the region's pivot table. If you'd like, you can expand the length and width of the chart to allow for easier viewing. Now let's hide the Field button. Right-click over any field button and select Hide All Field button on Chart. Click on the pie chart, and from the Pivot Chart Tools ribbon, select the tab Design. Click the drop-down for the Quick Layout, and then Layout 1. From the Change Colors button, change the color scheme to the 6th green monochromatic option. Great! The last step is to change the chart title from Total to Percentage of Sales by Category. The chart is ready. The final piece of the dashboard is to include a timeline allowing users to easily view different time periods. Select cell P8 and from the ribbon, select Pivot Table Analyze tab and then Insert Timeline. From the Insert Timeline dialog box, click the End of the Month Date box. Press OK, and now drag the timeline to the area near the chart. Right-click on the newly added timeline and from the pop-up menu select Report Connections. When prompted, select all checkboxes and click OK. This is an important step because we want to connect all the pivot tables and pivot charts with this timeline. From the Timeline Tools ribbon under Timeline Captions, enter the new name of time frame. Let's do some additional steps to complete the design of our dashboard. Click on the View tab and uncheck the Grid Lines box. You can add a border around the pivot tables from the Home tab, border buttons like this. Select a design to the timeline that'll fit with the other objects like green shades. It would be useful to display a number that represents the percentage of goal between the actual sales and the ideal or planned sales. The bigger the percentage, the better, but if the number is 100%, then something is going wrong. The easiest way to do this calculation is to divide the sales with the planned value, thus D8 divided by E8, and display the number to cell D5. Instead, I will use the if-error function. The Excel if-error function returns a custom result when a formula generates an error, a standard result when no error is detected. If-error is an elegant way to trap and manage errors without using more complicated nested if statements. The syntax is the following. So click on cell D5 and start typing equal if-error D8 divided by E8, 0. Convert the value to a percentage. Align the percent number to the right and make some formatting. Great! Now we have a visual representation of this pivot table. Similarly, we're going to create a visual representation for these two pivot tables, employees below 5% goal and employees above 5% of goal. For this reason, we will use another Excel function, the COUNTIF function. COUNTIF is an Excel function that allows you to count cells in a range that meet a single condition. COUNTIF can be used to count cells that contain dates, numbers, and text. The criteria used in COUNTIF support logical operators, like greater than or less than, and wildcards, like an asterisk for partial matching. The syntax is the following. Let's get started by clicking the J5 cell and start typing. Equal, COUNTIF, range K8 to K14, less than or equal to 0.05. Notice the double quotes I put. In general, text values need to be enclosed in double quotes and numbers do not. However, when a logical operator is included with a number, the number and the operator must be enclosed in quotes also. Align the value to the right and make some formatting. Do exactly the same steps for employees above 5% of the goal. To save time, copy the previous formula and paste it into cell M5. Now edit the formula from the formula bar. The dashboard is ready. Once you've created the pivot tables, charts, and the dashboard with the preferred layout and formatting, you're ready to receive new data. New information may be added to your existing pivot tables either by appending or overwriting the existing data using the refresh feature. Refreshing your data allows you to keep your current formatting and calculations. Just remember in your initial design to allow for additional rows and columns that may be created when appending records. If you recall from the previous lesson, we created the initial pivot table by selecting columns and not specific cells. Thus, we can receive a new month's worth of sales and append our existing dataset while continuing to keep all of our existing formatting and calculations. Let's do an example. Open the Auto Parts Sales Dashboard Refresh Data Excel file. From the Refresh Data worksheet, copy all the cells from A2 to G1441. Move the dashboard Excel file, click the data worksheet, and paste all the new data at the end of the old data. So click on A2882 cell and press Ctrl+V for paste. Pretty straightforward, right? Return to the Dashboard tab and select the A7 cell from the Pivot Table Analysis tab. Click Refresh drop-down arrow and select Refresh All. Here is the updated information. The difference between selecting Refresh versus Refresh All is that Refresh only updates the active pivot table. By selecting Refresh All, we're updating all of the pivot tables in the dashboard. Now let's make some final touches to the dashboard by adjusting the columns. Great. Depending on your audience, you may want to consider protecting your dashboard to prevent unauthorized users from modifying it, as well as hide any data source tabs, thus only allowing your customers to see the dashboard itself. This is very important. Protecting the workbook or worksheet disables the use of slicers and prevents users from manually refreshing the data. To hide the data worksheet, right-click over on the tab and select Hide from the pop-up menu. From the ribbon, select Review and press the Protect Workbook button. The following dialog box will appear. Optionally, you can enter a password or leave it blank and click OK. To remove the Protect Workbook lock, you would repeat the previous steps. Then, to unhide the Worksheet tab, I would right-click over any tab and select Unhide. While protecting the workbooks protects users from accessing hidden tabs, it does not prevent them from making changes to the remaining visible worksheets or from refreshing or changing the data source. Therefore, we must complete the additional steps. Select the Dashboard worksheet. From the ribbon, select Review and then click the Protect Sheet button. The following dialog box will appear. You may enter a password or leave blank. A good practice is to leave the first two checkboxes selected, the Select Locked cells and the Select Unlocked cells. These will allow your customers to click on cells and scroll but not change any content. Click the OK button. If a user tries to modify the sheet, they will receive one of the following messages. To unprotect the sheet from the ribbon, select Review, Unprotect Sheet. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more about Excel dashboards, check out my Udemy Dashboard Masterclass course. Don't forget to subscribe to get updates, and I'll see you in the next video.